Joining me now is the spokesperson for the State Department, Tammy Bruce. Tammy, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. And I know Secretary of State Marco Rubio, as well as President Trump, have kept the heel of the boot on the neck of Iran. What are your thoughts on all of this, and what should we look forward to in terms of the Iranian talks with America?
Well, Masi is just such an inspiration. It's great that you had her on. And it reminds us of the nature of what's at stake here. Well, what we do know, of course, is that President Trump has reimposed the maximum pressure campaign that he started in his first term against Iran, and it's having an impact. Really, their economy is being crippled by this. And the president sent a note saying, you've either got to negotiate with us, make a deal, or the military will be used. It was, I think, a very strong letter, as it was reported. And Iran doesn't have many options. They've really got to address the fact that the world that they knew it is over. President Trump is back. America has the world's top diplomat in Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State. And, of course, also we're changing the nature of their ability to sell their oil around the world. We've issued sanctions against a Chinese company for purchasing Iranian oil, $500 million worth at least, and certainly other entities in China who are helping to facilitate the sales of oil from Iran. So we're serious. They know the president is serious. Marco Rubio is serious. And they are going to have to come to the table to deal with the world now that will not put up with the nature of what it has done, not just to the Middle East, but to the world as a whole.
Tammy, I think you just hit on something so important that I want to drill down on, and that is that the president has imposed sanctions on Chinese companies for their role in terms of the Iranian oil shipments. Talk to us about the relationship between China and Iran, because I feel like this time around, President Trump's second term, he's dealing with a much more intertwined relationship between those hostile nations. I'm talking Iran, China, Russia, and North Korea. How do you see it?
Yes, exactly. And so we've seen this. There's been a lack, let's say, of law and order around the world for a number of years now. Donald Trump's return to being the world's leader, if you will, has made it very clear that the status quo is no longer allowable. And, of course, China, as I've noted, sanctions against a Chinese company and individual entities and individuals who are making this possible, right? Iran is making money through the sale of its oil. We have sanctions on that framework, and we're acting on those sanctions. So this sends a message not just to China, but to the rest of the world. But it tells you something about the nature of the choices that have been made. The entire world is harmed by these arrangements. The entire world knows that Iran is, as a state, the world's really largest state sponsor of terror around the world, certainly in the Middle East, that these things have got to change as we work to stop wars that Iran is helping facilitate, as we work to stop the carnage, not only in Russia and Ukraine, but certainly in the Middle East with Israel and what it has faced at the hands of Iran. So we're making very good progress with diplomacy and outreach, and that's what you see from this administration.
Yeah, you sure are, Tammy. Thank you for your leadership there. Look, Roger Robinson, who worked in the Reagan administration, has been on this program many times, and he has pointed out that there are 40 publicly traded Chinese companies in America that are primarily responsible for propping up the Iranian economy. I'm just wondering if there is a capital markets lever to pull here for the administration. He says all included in Wall Street investment products like ETFs. And he says, where are the required U.S. capital market sanctions against those Chinese companies? But there you go. President Trump did it, putting those sanctions on those Chinese companies. Will there be further action? As those companies trade freely on our exchanges, Tammy, and, ordinary investors are buying those stocks, and what are they doing? They're funding the expansion of the CCP in Iran.
Well, of course, what I can't comment on is the nature of what is in the hands of the White House, and certainly when it comes to sanctions, the Treasury Department. But we now realize that with an administration that is not just willing to take action on behalf of America, it's their mission. It's why President Trump is in office, and we've gotten a full administration. Every department understands the nature that we've got a window here to change the trajectory that has destroyed destroyed so many people's lives around the world, and you don't have to do it with boots on the ground. You can do it within this framework. America's got the tools to do that, and we'll see. But obviously, President Trump is delivering on the mandate he was delivered, and certainly Secretary of State Marco Rubio is an arm in that framework of implementing the Trump vision. And it's going to be an exciting 4 years, one that improves people's lives, saves lives, and ends the carnage that bad actors around the world have relied on for far too long.
And then, of course, there's the anti-Semitic protests on college campuses that the Trump administration is cracking down on while targeting foreign students who promote Hamas. ICE wants a foreign-born Cornell student who led pro-Hamas protests to turn himself in, Tammy, as you know. More demonstrations expected today at Columbia, even after the university partially agreed to Trump's demands to crack down on campus anti-Semitism. Masks are now banned on campus. Police are getting more power to stop out-of-control protests. And the White House has revoked $400 million in Columbia's federal funding over this. Tammy, what do you see happening next here?
Well, this is a very important public conversation, and because we haven't really had it before, about the fact that if you have a visa or a green card, neither one of those things are birthrights. You are not entitled to them as you come into this country. Every sovereign nation has a right to decide who gets into their nation and who is allowed to stay. If you are a foreign student, or you're coming in on a work visa, or even if you need a visa even to be a tourist, but if you lie to the consulate offices to get that visa, if you were to say, as an example, that you're going to come into this country to demonstrate on behalf of Hamas, or to espouse Jew hatred, to shut down educational buildings, to commit crimes, we never would issue you that visa. And if you end up doing that when you're here, we will take action to keep America safe and strong, and to make sure American families and students and universities are not held captive by that kind of activity. So Americans haven't really maybe thought about, we haven't had to talk about it like this, but the fact is, a visa is a privilege. Being in this country, if you have a green card, which stems from essentially a visa, that too is not something anyone is entitled to. These are privileges. And we will make sure that if you're in this country, and hopefully you're here because you know this is the greatest country on earth, we want to keep it that way. And we are looking out for the American citizen, for the American families, and for this country, so that we can remain a country that people want to come to. And this is the way we're going to do it, in part.
Yep. But, Tammy, we know that China has been undermining America now for decades, stealing our intellectual property, sending spy balloons and all these other ways that they're trying to surveil Americans and certainly our military installations. What do you want to say about China as Montana Senator Steve Daines is meeting with a Chinese premier right now, and U.S. executives are in Beijing this weekend? Daines is the first U.S. politician in Trump's second term to publicly sit down with a top CCP official. Daines said that he voiced the president's ongoing calls for China to stop the flow of fentanyl into the country, hoping for further high-level talks in the future, as President Trump sanctions those Chinese oil companies and a terminal for purchasing and storing Iranian crude oil. Tammy, you've said this. Your quote is, these sanctions are being imposed pursuant to President Trump's maximum pressure campaign to drive Iran's oil exports, including to China, to zero. But the president also pushed back on reports that Elon Musk was briefed on the Chinese war plans last week. That was a big story, that he was going to the Pentagon, and then it ended up that, no, he was not shown any China-sensitive information. How do you want to deal with China today in the State Department?
Well, you're already seeing the commitment that comes from Marco Rubio. As the Secretary of State, he's really implementing the nature of the Trump vision, that talks can happen. The United States hadn't talked to Russia for 3 years. There was zero communication for two major nuclear powers, for America as the most important and most powerful nation in the world. To not speak to a nation like Russia makes no sense. You have to talk with nations and with leadership to make sure that they understand that you're serious. They know that President Trump's serious, but this is a matter of making sure nations understand what's at stake, what we're capable of doing. The sanctions, certainly on Iran, are dealing with them and applying them when it comes to what China's doing regarding Iran's oil. But then, of course, conversations. What we're doing, of course, with the Russia-Ukraine war is talking with both parties. All of those things are underway. It's not just about sticks. It's about really carrots and sticks, making sure that there is an understanding that America is back, that we have a president that is serious about what is possible, but we want solutions. We want these things to end, and that is the approach, and I think you're seeing it right now across the globe at this point. All
right, Tammy, thanks so much for being here. We so appreciate it. Great to see you.
It's very exciting. Thanks, Maria.
Tammy Bruce joining us in Washington. Stay with us. We'll be right back.